Hey, welcome back. We're gonna take a look at one of the most interesting and difficult things to understand about Alphago Master when it was playing its 60-game series on Taijam. So this is the mini Chinese formation, right, up here. And one of the interesting patterns that came up was how to reduce this shape. Or I guess maybe not mini Chinese, sorry, low Chinese. And since we have the teaching tool and, much stronger AIs now, not stronger than AlphaGo, but like AIs that can help us, it's kind of interesting to take a look at what we can learn from them. So I've been going through the teaching tool and looking for positions that basically handle this shape, right? This was AlphaGo's master's technique, if you don't remember or didn't see him. Excuse me, sorry. Master would invade, like with a low 3-4 approach. And the common idea here is you would kick, make white heavy, then attack, and you have a pincer stone, so white can't make shape, right? Very common technique. So white's countermeasure is to play this press. And if black just answers, white can easily make shape by pressing on black. You sometimes will want to make this Atari, but most of the time you also don't really want to. It doesn't hurt to play it, other than you lose a liberty on this group, right? Right now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you play it, you'll still have 5, but when black cuts, you don't retain certain options like, hey, maybe I don't want to connect here, maybe I just want to play here to defend. And this kind of gives you some more options, or maybe something's happening on this top side that's changed, and you just want to haunt it to defend. You don't necessarily want to have that cut, right? Because once you've committed to playing this, Atari, then this peep or this clamp both become a little bit more severe, a little bit more annoying to handle. But that's a relatively minor point. Normally white will extend, black will Hana then extend, and if black just wants to take, that's fine. You have effectively reduced this area, so you can just extend, or you can Atari in some cases. In which case you see the benefit of not making this is now there's a threat to connect. So if they take, you don't have to connect, or you don't have to cut, because this could be a difficult fight. You can just run out, right? And if they want to do this, then you can cut, right? You save that option. And if they defend, then you can make some shape. Either way, you've broken into this little top part, and you've reduced black's moyo, so it's pretty good. So the strongest reply for black is to play this empty triangle, and this is where it gets very difficult, because if you block, which is what most people's natural inclination would be, right, is to block, then white will cut. And even though black shape isn't great, so white can go down, black can Hana connect like this, the corner won't die, and white has two very heavy, difficult groups to manage on both sides. So this is not really great for white, and so the move that Master came up with was this attach. Okay, so we're going to look at 5 responses, and I'm kind of going to go through them in order of difficulty. They're not in the order labeled here, I don't think, but just in order of difficulty. And by that I mean like kind of the complicatedness or difficulty to understand that variation. Okay, so we have to remember white's goal here is to just reduce the top side. I've kind of made this a little, I may have forgot to put this in, but it's very common to have this exchange already made. It won't really make a difference, but just keep that in mind that is there. So really, we're just interested in reducing the top. We're not really interested in anything to do with the corner or any life and death issue here. It's just reducing the top side. Okay, so I think the first variation is just pulling back, right? What happens if black just pulls back? Well, coming back here, we actually made our group weaker by helping black come towards us, so that's not really great. Unless we can abuse the shortage of liberties, but right now, kind of hard to do that. So that doesn't seem like a good idea. In fact, what Master does is just play here. And this is very natural, right? We are lightly threatening to connect. So let's say black comes here. Well, now we can just play here. Black can't cut because even though the ladder doesn't work, right, we can just easily break into the side. And this cut's dangerous, but this cut is also dangerous for black. There's not really a way to save these stones. And if you want to trade, that's fine. We have a nice pony key shape. Whoops. And there might be a better move order here, but you know, we're very nicely breaking in. And we don't have to play this right away either. We can keep it as a threat, say Atari and extend. And now you're threatening to cut. So this group is not as weak as it seems, and this group you have some room to play with. And this is not strong. Okay, and we don't have to play that right away either. And obviously if the ladder looks good for you, you can Atari this way. And if nothing's great, well, you could just make shape too. It's a very flexible shape. You can also just play here to begin with to make shape if you don't want to risk the cut, if you don't have the ladder and can't play on the left side. Okay, but that's not what Master would expect. You'd expect Black to just take the stone, because this would connect up between these. And now we can revert to a very nice reduction technique. And it kind of looks like we shoulder hit this stone. So already, comparison, Black is one space to the left, so that's a good gain for White. And then we're coming back to reduce. And this side is obviously broken up, and White's goal is basically accomplished, so that's pretty good. Okay, that's like the simplest variation. What else can we do? We can have Black just come here, and we Hane, right? So if we Hane this side, it's not really great, because once Black pulls back, we're kind of committed to these stones, which are not in the biggest area, right? Like, it's nice to break in here, but this space over here is a little bit more valuable because it's open. Even if you had the exchanges in the upper right, there would still be more open space there. So we'd go this way, push once, very natural for Black to answer. Black doesn't really want to get hit on the head of two stones, especially with this guy here. And then we make shape. Pretty easy, right? Just very nice reduction, very easily making shape in the top side. So now we have to look at the two more aggressive responses, the Hanes, right? And there's also this extend. Let's look at this extend first. So we can come back here. Now notice that Black is pulling away from this area of conflict. So this should help in the fight that breaks out here. We'd expect Black to cut. And actually this exchange is very nice, because now after making one forcing move, we can bridge up. And this shape is well connected and has lots of space to move into the center. Black wants to save this stone because it's a cutting stone, right? You don't want to link these guys together for White. Or let White link those up to extend. And then White can just push in Tiger's Mouth. There's a cutting point, so we want to defend that after an exchange. And actually at this point, White can just Teneki. The top side's, pretty alive. It's pretty hard to kill. You can easily run, clamp, you have at least one eye, but really you could just Hana and Tiger or something if you want to make eye space, and we can threaten to bring these out later. So this is pretty easy to settle for White. Yeah, fairly straightforward, right? Okay, now let's look at the two more difficult cases. The easier of the two is this Hane. So White has basically one response, which is to Hane over. Black can extend, or Black can Hane back. Both of these are fairly complicated, but we'll just go through them step by step. So let's look at the case where Black pulls back, because that's a little bit easier. Well, since Black pulled back, we can actually Hane again. And this is just a forcing move Black should answer. If Black, like say Atari's, the problem is now Black has to save the stone, otherwise Atari is just a bad exchange, helping White get stronger. Because there's a ladder. So like if Black saves, we could ladder. That's great. Why make that Atari then? But if Black wants to play something like this, it's actually not that great. White can Atari and come back here. And we see the benefit of having the E17 stone. When White extends here, White's threatening to come down and capture the two stones. So Black has to defend. And we can net. So this is a great success for White, catching two stones and breaking in and making a very strong group. So, in anything like this, yeah, sure, you could take this side, but White can easily make shape on the top. Atari once if you want, take a stone, very easy to settle in here, which would be a good profit for White, right? So Black can just come down, and White just jumps. So the way you think about this is these moves, they're all on the outside of Black, like outside meaning towards the center. So if Black cannot capture them in a very profitable way, then they're just forcing moves. And you basically have extra aji if black tries to eat them, or there's something you could return to later. And this jump basically acknowledges that these are forcing moves, and that white can treat the area lightly. For instance, in the future, if black plays somewhere else, white could play here to threaten to link up, right? You can't take the stone because you get caught. So white has effectively broken into this little area here. But if the side is more important, white could connect, right? Black would be inclined to break this up still, and white could break into the top side over here. There are a lot of ways to play from this. And so for black, you kind of have a couple options. You can hane, or you can turn, right? You kind of want to make it more difficult for white to handle this area. So since we have it up, let's say black turns. Well, we could just tenuki, right? These are light exchanges. And then later, we can still come back and help these stones. Black might atari, and we could just jump out. We can make a base, but I think jumping is a bit good here because even if black captures, this shape is very natural to make. Yeah. And what about if black hanes? Well, we can still tenuki, but we'd want to reinforce our group first. Because if we just tenuki, then you notice that actually this sequence, is not as strong anymore for black, or for white. And similarly this way, this can get into a very heavy fight. And this atari, while profitable, is not really helping you get enough compensation. So for white, we want to connect. And connecting basically makes this group stronger, right? Easy to see. And we can see that this exchange and this exchange, they don't really, or well, I guess this one kind of, but more like this, doesn't really lose white very much at all. And white has easily managed the center shape. For continuation, black might come out, and then we can tenuki. Because this group over here can easily make a base or run into the center. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, and I think that's it for those. So now we have to come back to the most difficult variation. Did I go over the other hane? No, I didn't. So, well, one more thing before the most difficult variation. This hane, white can easily atari and block. And you see that white's setting up a squeeze here. So black wants to stop that, but that gives white the opportunity to fix the cut. Black wants to run out. We can actually get some forcing moves against the corner now and come back. And this is actually a really key move because it shortens the liberties on these 3 stones and it helps defend d18 indirectly. Because if black were to take it, then we easily can make life, right? Later if black wanted to attack. So it's very good for making a base, very good for putting pressure on black. And this capture is very relevant because in the future, white would like to atari and mess around in the corner a bit. So if we have a way to make this stone, this capture less desirable, by say making shape, that helps with this aji a little bit. So black jumps. Black could also, I think, come around. Both of these are in the Alphago variations. And if black comes around, we can connect once to make the aji worse here for black, potentially save these later, and jump out. Black, doesn't want this to jump, like this, because then these center stones would be isolated. Black can't really fight back because of the potential to kill the top side. So black would have to run, and then white could attack. So because of that, black defends. You don't want to do that right away though, because if you play like this or something, then you come here, black won't play on the left, black will play from the center, and then your group will be under attack on the top. So very key point to come here. And then this is a very nice probe, right? We already said that this kind of defends this descent, defends this cut. So if black were to play here, we could atari. If black takes, then we just connect. Black wants to connect, that's fine, but we can get a bunch of forcing moves against these 2 stones. Yeah. So that's one variation. The alternative variation, did I finish this one? Yeah, the alternative variation, and so black shouldn't capture, black should connect. And then we can play this move later. Sorry, I should finish this one first. This one requires a ladder for obvious reasons. Black could ladder like this, but normally, black had the star point here and a 3-4 point here, so the bottom right is likely white's corner. Yeah, and so this one's pretty straightforward. Black, could squeeze, but then white's solidly alive, and black has many cutting points. Yeah, so this is a very nice, and if black just defends, this is obviously a good exchange for white. Okay, the other option is to jump, connect, defend, same as before, right? Good exchange to make your group stronger, so leaves more aji. And then we want to press. And notice here we're not jumping, because this group has moved out closer this way. So we want to lean to get around this group, and maybe hope to come back and save these stones to attack the black group here. Black pushes and then surrounds, right? If you don't want to play something like this, because that's just helping white to get out. And then we could save it. Pretty straightforward, right? Black plays here because it's a key point, right? So if we try to kill or something, this is forcing, and we get some extra shape before going back. And believe we can actually just defend like this, because even after this, black has some really, this corner is a little problematic. There's also some problems in the center, right? So if we play here, black would like to cut, right? So if we connect in here, but then this move is sente. We can actually make it a little bit better, maybe. Oh, maybe not. Okay. And then we can just come out. And black can't go down because of the cut, so not too bad to live. So if black can't cut, black has to defend. We can cut one way or the other. Right, so it's a little bit hard for black. There might be a better way. So obviously white could play the ko too. But I think this is pretty straightforward. And yeah, pretty straightforward. There might be another tesuji actually, now that I think about it, but it's not really relevant. Yep. So white can get away with this exchange and black doesn't want to let this group settle easily. And then white can split. And this split, because we already said, this group was decently strong, this split is mostly an attacking move. It's not a defensive move. And if I put the rest of the board, on the board, you can kind of see how this is splitting two groups, right? That's kind of useful to see. Yeah, that's basically it. I think there's also potential for a ko in the corner, but I just realized it now. So if black tried to kill, I'm wondering if we can make this exchange still and then come here, or just, yeah, and then start this ko, because this ko would be pretty life-threatening. Anyway, so that is one more variation, and then the last variation is this hane, which has some really difficult variations. Wait, did I go back too far? Oh, I think I made a different branch because it was so much more complicated. Well, guess not. Wait, there it is. Yeah, so here it is. So crosscut. Yeah, so this one's obviously more difficult because there's a crosscut. Black pulls back, right? So we don't want to defend this side because it's very easy to play something like this and make shape. And now we're settled basically. So we want to pull back towards the side that has, more stuff happening. I suppose you can Atari, but I don't really know what you do after, right? Because if we turn, connect perhaps, but then we're going to be giving all these forcing moves to white, and white's shape is quite nice, and we don't really want to get pressed here either. There's kind of some bad aji too, right? Defend. So nothing's going to come of this, but there's just a lot of bad aji, and there might be something more severe. I hadn't considered this Atari. Yeah, Alphago gives this shape, which I think is probably in most cases would be the most severe response you would think of. Obviously, if you go down, that's just a good exchange to get this, because you can Atari, you can attach later. So just playing something to treat those lightly is already a good exchange for white. Right, you come here, then you might play here, and then you can just Atari, and I don't know what you do as black. Make shape. Right, and this kind of crosscut gives white a lot of options later, so it's fine to treat it lightly. So if black pulls back, then we want to defend and get these exchanges in, so that way we commit black to this fight. Okay, push, we're trying to shorten the liberties. Obviously if black defends, we just push again, defend, push again. Like, this is all fine. We've successfully made a very strong group, and black has been reduced to the third line. That's all great. Black can be more severe by cutting, and we get this kind of ko shape. You can take, no ko threats in the opening, defend, defend, Atari, and here's a very key thing. It's probably fine to take, to be honest, and then black might come up. But this shape is kind of heavy, and it's not clearly alive. And by taking, we've reduced the strain of these two stones, right? Since we're closer to being live, it's less important for black to try to keep pressure on us, right? So because of that, and it's very particular to the Chinese shape, white attaches here. And this is because this K18 move could potentially make a base for a group inside while also threatening the two stones. So, for instance, if black just defends, well, this is great. We could just squeeze, and we're totally fine. Great shape. Black's super reduced. Everything's good. If black extends, which is what Alphago suggests, we can haunt it and start to pressure this upper right. This is actually getting a little bit weak, and then black will have to run. This is one variation, and I kind of stopped it here because it's not clear. I was wondering if white could cut, but I didn't finish researching that. Alternatively, you could just extend, and there's a lot of aji here that's very difficult for black to handle. For instance, if you just defend, you can still get this move in, right? And then you can play something like this to run, or this to try to live inside, right? It's not that hard to live inside. If nothing else, getting this before that, you could also peep, right? And then we're looking at moves like, well, probably still reduction moves. This ko is super unreasonable for both, but more unreasonable for black, because you lose everything if you don't win it, whereas white's only losing half. Yeah, so that's kind of what is suggested. And so, yeah, and any Hana doesn't really change that because you still have this problem with the ladder thing. So then you're letting white push up and force here, force there, and net. It's kind of hard for, black to do anything. And sure, anytime you play reduction, you're like, oh, black got the corner, but it's this corner anyway. And the whole top side is gone. And white got points there. So it's pretty miserable. So that for that reason, yeah, just extend and fight this out. Probably the best way. Although it's a little bit unclear. This is probably the most even sort of result you can get or expect. Okay, I think that runs through all of them. Obviously, you can see why this last one is pretty complicated. Just because of the tessity of the attach here, the crosscut, the squeeze. There's not really any variation in the squeeze though, so it's pretty easy to play, I guess. At least I don't see I guess you could start the ko sooner, but then there's no way, what threat like this doesn't, not enough. You can still live. So I don't know. You're probably just capturing and playing this way. You can connect. If you connect, I think white's pretty happy to just take it, connect here, or maybe just take it. Black still doesn't want to get sealed, right? And you still have this aji. It's not as severe because this shape is fixed, but they're still threatening to Atari the stone. Yeah. Anyway, so if I think this is a really cool shape. It's definitely a shape that I've used in my games, and it's definitely something that is just useful to think about. And if you know the variations, you can start considering more global circumstances, right? Because not every game is going to have this particular opening. Actually, some of these variations are from other shapes that were in the Alphago teaching tool. So, okay, Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye.